So you've imported your FBX into Painter, you've done your baking, so you have all your mesh maps created. You're ready to start in terms of painting and texturing your model. Let's take a look at how you might go about doing that. I'm going to share my screen. We're going to go first of all to Painter. That Painter. Why do I have two Painters? Confusing or what? There we are. That's the one I was looking for. So you can see I've got my model here. By the way, if you hit the tab key, all your menus go away and it makes a nice big workspace. If you find yourself saying, what I want to be able to do is I want to just, kind of use the mesh maps that I've already got. So if you look up here, texture set list. Sorry, I'm confusing you. Not the mesh maps, the texture set list. Your menu may be somewhere else. I don't know where yours happens to be. You can see I can drag it, I can rip it off and put it wherever I want it. That's where mine happens to be. There are 4 texture sets. There's the bridge, there's the engines, there's the spaceship, and there are the weapons. And so you can decide, what am I working on right now? What do I want to change? What do I want to paint? What do I want to work on? So you can choose right there in that list which one you're going to play with. Then what you've got here are you've got the model itself, the materials for the model, and you can see up here it says materials. And if you say, well, wait a minute, what have I got actually for any of these mesh maps that I made, like the normal one or the world space normal? So that if you tap the B key on your keyboard, what you'll see is that you can take a look. You can look at all of your mesh maps. There's ambient occlusion, there's curvature, there's position. So you can kind of go through these relatively quickly and see, well, what have I got to work with? And you've got a lot of useful stuff in here. And then if you tap the M key, it goes back to materials. So now we know we've got all these mesh maps that we can use. What I'd like to quickly show you is how you might go about just painting this thing. So if I come down to my standard materials, that's right here in my assets menu, and go to materials and say, oh, let's just paint it orange, plop. You notice when I grab that and roll over the machine, roll over the model here, it lights up. All the polygons light up. So you can see that they're lit up. And I can drop it onto that and the whole thing will turn orange. Maybe I want that, maybe I don't. What I can also do are a couple of things. I can say, give me a mask for that particular layer. So you can see right now I've got a paint spray layer. There's my add mask. I'm going to add a black mask which will hide everything. Now I can use my paintbrush up here in my brush menu and choose a brush like a pretty ordinary one. Let's get a pretty ordinary brush like that one. And come back in here and go, and I can just paint on that surface. And basically what I'm doing is painting out the mask. So I can choose where I want that color to show. By the way, you'll notice that I am painting and it's only showing up on one side of my model. If your paint is showing up on the other side of your model, you didn't do your import correctly. Go back and watch the video about how to import your model and turn on recompute all polygons or all UVs, all data. So hopefully that's working for you. So you can see that. If I don't want to just go blah, blah, blah with a big blobby brush, I can also use this other mode right here in my menu over here on the side. I can use polygon fill. So I can choose polygons of my model that I want to be filled with my color and use kind of the geometry of the model itself to paint how I want this to look. So those are 2 ways to use. I've got paint spray and I've got a mask on there, and I'm using different ways to hide the mask, basically reveal what's under the mask. So that's one way to go about doing this thing. I'll leave that back alone just like that. So now we have a big fat orange model. Actually, let's take that right off right now. So I'm back to this as square 0. I'm going to go back in here. Now that was a standard material. I want to show you what happens if you use a smart material. This next button is the smart materials, and I can do things like grab this smart material and say I want that to be on here. Plop, it puts the whole thing on there. And what it'll do is give us a chance to play with how that is going to look. It looks kind of similar, but you'll notice we've got grime down in the edges, or down in the creases, and we've got kind of chips and wear and tear on the edges. That looks actually pretty great. So how is it doing that? Let's take a look. Inside the Smart Materials, I'm going to open this up. I've got metal rust happening here, and if I click on the mask to see, well, what's making that go? Click on the mask builder. I know this is so complex. There's so many little fussy things that you have to know. Climb inside the there. By the way, if you want to just see it, like just turn things off one by one. Just turn them off and go, okay, I want to see what's happening. Turn on the paint, turn on the mask builder legacy, and bam, that's where our rust is showing up. So you know that's what's making it go. So click on that and then go down into your parameters, and you can start to look at something like ambient occlusion right there. So AO, ambient occlusion, is controlling what's happening with your rust. Look at that. I can crank it up or down and see how much of a difference that makes. I can also open up the ambient occlusion here and control more carefully what's happening exactly with that. How big of a range does it have? We can shrink it or expand it. We can turn up the amount of contrast, the noisiness. You can invert it. You can play with a whole lot of things in here. The other thing that's worth looking at is inside here, there's the grunge, and it will give you a lot of controls over how much grunge is happening on this thing. So you can turn that up or down as well. So that's how it's doing that. This also is saying, well, I'm going to give you this kind of trick that's happening right here. So let's close this back up and take a look. Sorry, I'm going to leave that alone. In my paint spray in here, it's also got something that's happening with the curvature menu. Curvature is, how far down do I have to go? Did I already skip it? I already skipped it. Rats. Oh, it's the mask. I'm going to click on the mask so I can see what's going on in Mask Editor. Tricky, tricky, tricky. Look at that. Curvature is way the schmutz up. So if I turn that down, all of a sudden I lose my edges. So you see what's happening. Because we have our baked models, there's my ambient occlusion model, which shows me darkness in the creases. If I look at my curvature model, I've got contrast, I've got highlights on the edges. So that's what it's doing. It's using those two maps to say, if you want to look at grime in the corners, use ambient occlusion. If you want to look at what's happening with the curvature model, use that to make those edges pop like that. Underneath it all, you see there's this metal brushed. So if I turn that off, the whole thing has this brushed metal, and that's what's showing through when that curvature model happens. So that's what's called a smart material. You can make your own. You can build up a whole pile of these things. You know how to do this now. So you can bring in individual elements, put a mask on there, edit the mask, have it controlled by ambient occlusion, curvature, normal, lots of other things, and then put that all together into a folder like that and say, give me a new folder, and I can name that my smart material, and then you can actually right-click this and send it to make a new smart material, and that will put it into your menu over here as a smart material. So I realize this is kind of a lot. There's a lot that we're learning how to do, but I hope that you're finding it useful and helpful and kind of cool. See ya.